I didn't really have your kind of typical route into makeup, I suppose. Yes, I was heavily pregnant, the oil downturn was ongoing and I got made redundant.
Yes, here we go. What a podcast we have today, and we've been welcomed into the wonderful Nest Walk to record the podcast here. I've recently photographed a wedding here at Nest Walk, so can speak firsthand about how accommodating all the staff are, and it really is a fantastic wedding venue. So thank you to Nest Walk for welcoming us in today. Now, following on from the success of the last podcast with Haldy, I had to get someone on with hopefully the same level of chat as him. Lisa Hart is a makeup artist that has built a strong and loyal client base over the last 7 years working in the wedding industry. As a photographer myself, Lisa is brilliant to work with on wedding mornings as she keeps bridal parties relaxed and is just generally great to be around. So thank you, Lisa, for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me.
And you've already made a better start on Haldy as you've become more appropriately dressed than him.
I had to take my outfit into consideration because I know Haldy got a bit of stick for his shorts that he had on in the last one, but that's Haldy. He's a pretty laid back guy. So, but I did genuinely say, didn't you? I was like, please don't put me on straight after Haldy because I knew he was going to be a tough act to follow. He was, it was amazing. It was really good. I really enjoyed listening to that one. But I've got a tough act to follow with him for sure.
Arranging today with yourself, you made it quite easy for us, but you've had to shuffle some clients around, I think you said. So who's getting their makeup done at 10:30 on a Monday morning?
Mondays are quite varied, to be honest. Yeah, we get a lot of bridal trials obviously on a Monday. Weekends are taken up with a lot of weddings. But yeah, they're quite varied. I mean, we do get a lot of Monday weddings still as well. You know, that is quite common now. I do also do like a lot of like one-to-one makeup artist training for like other makeup artists as well. So if you've got a makeup artist who wants to do a bit of bridal one-to-one training, we kind of do that on a Monday. But yeah, right now it's, peak wedding season, so bridal trials are pretty much how most of my Mondays are looking these days.
Nice. Okay. Good. And you had a wedding this weekend at Achnagarn. How was it?
I did, yeah. It was lovely. Achnagarn, I'm there quite a lot. I think I've been there the last 3 Saturdays in a row, and I've got a few more coming up in the next few weeks. So it's always a nice wedding venue. It's lovely. The staff are great. It's a beautiful setting. It's a gorgeous place. And it was a really nice chilled wedding, which is what we like. So it was fab. That's what we want. So it was great, lovely bridal party, and everything went smoothly. Good. That was good.
And then I don't think it was this weekend you were at Achnagarn getting up at 4 a.m, but I think it was last weekend. How did you deal with that at 4 a.m? I couldn't do that. But...
Do you know what? That's something people ask all the time. I always think you shouldn't really be getting up at 4 a.m. unless you're going to the airport, should you? But do you know what? You kind of just get used to it. I think having young kids, that puts you in you should know this.
I know,
That puts you in perfect preparation for it, doesn't it? But I mean, it just depends on the size of the bridal party and the size, like what time their ceremony is as well. If they're having an early ceremony and they've got 10 bridesmaids, it's going to be an early start. Just to make sure that we get enough time. You don't want anyone feeling rushed or any sort of additional stress. So if that means getting up early, and if you've got a bit of a travel as well, Achnagarn's not too bad. It's only about half an hour, but sometimes we're further afield. So, you've kind of got to take that into account as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm kind of used to it now.
So like you say, you're absolutely smashing it with the weddings. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and how you became to being a makeup artist to start with?
I didn't really have your kind of typical route into makeup, I suppose. I didn't start off working in makeup counters. I didn't study at college. I didn't, do beauty or anything at college. I've never worked in a salon, so I've kind of had a very atypical route, I suppose. So I had a career change a good few years ago, about 8 years ago. When I was at school, I was pretty academic. I was getting really good grades. And when you're at school and you're getting good grades, everyone's like, okay, so what are you doing? Are you doing medicine, dentistry, or law? And that was like your 3 options. And I'm really squeamish, so the first 2 were ruled out. I didn't have the stomach for those. And we've got a few lawyers in the family, so I went on. I did my law degree, and I did my honours degree, so I did 5 years, and it was good. I was enjoying it, but round about the time that I graduated, so that would have been, I feel really old now, that would have been, 2010 or something, there were no jobs about. So to give you a bit of background, if you're doing a law degree and you want to be a practicing solicitor, you've got to do your diploma year, which is, I don't know how much it costs now. I think it's near £10,000, but then it was £7,000. and you had to get a traineeship within 2 years or it was void. It was like you'd never done it. And anyone that studied law about the same time as me will know that round about that time, there was a real shortage in jobs. There was no jobs.
Okay.
So when I graduated, all the kind of lawyers in my family and any lawyer that I knew at the time was sort of like, do not do your diploma just now. This is a really bad time, because any traineeships that were coming up wanted you to work like 60 hours a week unpaid for 2 years.
That's a lot.
That wasn't an option. So the advice I kind of got was just go and work, get work experience, life experience, and revisit it. So to shorten that down a little bit, I went off to live in Malta. We thought I'll go to Malta for a year or two. My now husband, then boyfriend, was playing football. He was playing football out there. I worked with the best time out there, absolutely amazing. And then we moved back to Glasgow. And then he was retiring from football, and we found ourselves moved up here for a year 11 years ago. And at that point, I got an opportunity. It was a really good opportunity working in the oil industry. So I started working in oil and gas up here, and I had my first little boy. And to be honest, I was miserable. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I had the proper, Monday morning dread, or Sunday morning knowing I had Monday morning dread, I suppose. And I'd been there a good few years, and I had a good job. And I think that's even harder when you've got a good job, making that. We spoke about this earlier on, didn't we? We were talking about, my previous job, and I was saying, when you've got a good job, walking away from that is really hard. Making that jump. And, I think, I wasn't sure what to do, but I remember just having that real dread about going back. And we were actually on holiday at the time, and it was like, when you're counting down the days of like, we've only got 5 days left, 4 days left. Yeah. But for me, it was like, I've got 4 days left till I'm back at work. So at this point, my wee boy was almost 2, and we were, had a wedding coming up and whatever. And, we're trying to save. And I remember thinking, like, what can I do? Just now I felt a bit stuck, I suppose. So my husband was like, what do you enjoy? What could you do even as a hobby that would sort of make you, I suppose, soften the blow of not enjoying your job, like short term, and then, we can do something after the wedding. So I basically enrolled in, it was an intensive makeup course. It wasn't even, it was like 5 days. It wasn't even a proper course. It was really just an introduction, I suppose, to makeup. And I did that with a view of, do you know what, I don't like my job, so this will give me a hobby and something else to focus on. So I enrolled in that in September, and I just found out I was pregnant actually with my youngest. So in amongst the morning sickness and everything, I had this all going on. And then I was just practicing for fun. And bear in mind as well, I'd not long moved up here, so I didn't really know. And everyone I worked with, it was mainly guys I worked with, so I wasn't really, I think I knew literally about 4 females in the Highlands at that point.
Just had them constantly coming in to do makeup.
Every time they came for a coffee, it's like, sit down so I can practice. And then the Friday before Christmas that year, so I was heavily pregnant, the oil downturn was ongoing, and I got made redundant. Which was not good. And got made redundant just before Christmas, heavily pregnant, wedding coming up the following year, and it was just like, oh no, what are we going to do? So I thought, well, I'm so far gone now that I'm not going to be able to get another job, realistically. So on the 2nd of January, just after Christmas, I thought I'll set up a makeup page. I'll literally just do it for peanuts, just to practice, with a view it might be a little bit of extra money. To tide us over until baby's here, and then I'll go straight back to work. So I think back, and I think I was doing makeup for about £10 a head or something like that. And I was literally, I remember putting posts up on this Facebook page I created, and it was like, I am really rubbish. Virtually, I was saying, I'm really rubbish at makeup. I just want to practice. I just want to build my network. I don't have a network up here, apart from a lot of males that weren't interested in makeup. And I just started doing the odd makeup here and there and building it up. And that was kind of, I suppose, how it was never supposed to be my job. It just kind of snowballed. I just never really planned on it becoming a job. It was more about just tiding me over. And then it very much became my kind of plan A, I suppose.
So that's like the redundancies kind of forced your hand a little bit.
If that hadn't happened,
I was about to say, do you think if you'd...
I would never have had the guts. When you've got young kids and you've got a good job and a good salary and, you know, everything else. You know, you could see career progression and all these things. But I would never have had the guts to do it, but I knew something had to give.
Yeah.
You know, I was in a job I didn't like. I very much didn't have the right work-life balance. And, you know, if you come home from a job that you don't like and you're there all day, you come home in a really bad mood.
Yeah.
Like, your family are not getting the best of you either, are they?
Yeah.
You have constant mum guilt because you're like trying to do it all. And then knowing that I had another baby on the way, I was like, this is going to get even harder.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the thing as well is, you know, back then, so that's like over 7 years ago, makeup wasn't what it is now. Like, people didn't get their makeup done for nights out. People only really got their makeup done if they were getting married.
Yeah.
So I remember enrolling in this course and being like, I know that I can't, you know, make a living out of it. You know, there's not enough demand for it. And I remember saying to my friends, you know, even if I got 1 or 2 weddings a year or something. And then I literally did my first wedding that March.
Did you?
I mean,
how did you feel before that?
Well, just to clarify, I was by no means their first choice. I was very much a last resort. At that point, I mean, there's so many makeup artists now. I don't know how many there are in our area, but there must be 20, 30. There's loads of us. And at that point, there was only 2 others. And I was very much still a work in progress. You know, I was not, you know, I wasn't really there yet. And I remember getting a message on Facebook from a really sort of panicked bride, and she was like, I'm getting married tomorrow. The makeup artist I had had an emergency. Yeah. And I was like 8 months pregnant, literally out to here.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm getting married tomorrow. I've got no makeup artist. And I was like, just to clarify, like, I'm like really not what you're wanting, you know. And I kind of had to say to her, like, I'm not kind of fully there yet, you know.
Yeah.
And she's like, it'll be fine. It'll be better than what we can do. Please, like, just come. And again, I feel like I was thrown into the deep end a little bit. It kind of forced my hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was no time really to be nervous because I was kind of doing them a favour, if you like, which took the pressure off me a little bit.
Yeah. That's probably the best way to fall into it, is like you get less than 24 hours notice rather than you probably, if you had like 6 months notice.
Sweating about it.
Or doubting yourself and that, but at least you've got to come tomorrow and do it.
You've got to do it, and you're kind of helping someone out. Otherwise, that person's got nobody. So I was very much not their first, second, or, you know, I was very much a last resort. But do you know what? It was actually lovely. It was fine. All went really well. And I feel like I kind of then got that kind of bug for it.
Yeah.
And I got, then the kind of booking started trickling in after that. And then when we got married that August, I did my own makeup, and I got so many bookings off the back of that. And then I remember, because I had plans on coming home from our wedding, we got married abroad, and I remember thinking, when I get home, I'm going to start looking for a job. Yeah. And because my boy was only 2 months old when we got married as well, so I had a 2-month-old and a 2-year-old, so it was a bit mental. But and then I remember coming back and being like, actually, maybe this could be my job. And it snowballed from there. So it was good. It worked out well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that's how you got into it. It's and now is it sort of mainly weddings that you do, or do you?
Weddings are my main thing. They're what I love doing. They're where I'm kind of at my happiest, I suppose. I do a bit of everything, and I like doing a bit of everything to get a bit of variety. You know, I like people coming in for the nights out, and it gives me a chance to see clients repeatedly as well. Whereas if I just did weddings, I wouldn't, have that repeat sort of client base. I like doing a lot of the one-to-one training. I like doing makeup lessons as well. And then I've got other like bits and bobs that I do as well. But I like to keep it varied, but weddings are my main sort of backbone of my business, definitely.
Good. And you said earlier on, or just a couple of minutes ago, so you've got a couple of young boys now. How do you find juggling being a mum with 2 young kids, and then you started your business around just after you got married and you had a 2-month-old in the house? So how do you find that sort of progressing from then to now, and having been mum, I've also got 2 young kids now as well, trying to grow my business. You're right in
the mix of it all as well, aren't you?
Kimberly, my wife's the same, so it's just like...
it's not easy, no. It's hard, and it's whether you're, and we spoke about this earlier, being a stay-at-home parent is hard, but being out working as well is equally really difficult. And I had 2 kids that didn't sleep. I was up all night, and I remember being up all night and thinking, I've got to get up for work in an hour, and I hadn't slept. And then the mum guilt creeps in, as well, that you're kind of, you feel like you're kind of missing things or trying to juggle too much.
Yeah.
But then I kind of think back and I'm like, well, the other alternative is I was working in a job I didn't like.
Yeah.
And that gave me no flexibility
no control
over my diary. Whereas now, if they've got a school trip and they want me to go and help, I can do that. One of the things that I always said before I had kids is that I want to be able to do, obviously not every day, because some days I've got a wedding during the week, but I want to do the majority of the school pickups and drop-offs, because I had two parents that worked full-time, and that wasn't something that I kind of, experienced very often. And that was something that I wanted to make sure that I did. So, and I kind of, it is hard, but then at the same time, I feel reassured that I've got a good balance. And yeah, I mean, I'm up early. I've got 2 young kids. That kind of sets me up for the day anyway. I'm used to getting up early with them. And I just try and prioritise my diary, I suppose. Obviously, weddings are booked so far in advance, so those are key dates that you can't miss. But everything else, I kind of look at my bridal trials and everything else that I do, and I look at what commitments we've got as a family or what they've got on, and I now try and fit work around family life instead of trying to fit family life around work, I suppose.
And that's obviously sort of good for you, as in that you've grown your business so much that you can now control that side of it as well. That you can sort of not pick and choose, but you can sort of work around your diary as such. For your kids sort of are more of a priority than the diary is.
And it's hard to get to that point. I think I say no more to things now than I ever have. Because you have to, because I've learned the hard way. Like my family are all in Glasgow, and I've looked back at years, just kind of 2018, 2019, just before COVID, where I was like, I am not going to get home for 3 months because I've given myself no time off. Whereas now I make a point of booking these dates out really far in advance so that I know I can get back to Glasgow once a month and I know that I can see everyone. I think you've just got to be organised. When you're self-employed, you don't like saying no to work because it's not like it's not the same sort of steady income where you know what you're getting each month. It can be varied, and you'll have like peak wedding season where you get more than maybe in the winter, but you kind of do have to remember why you're doing it. And obviously my kids are like my kind of biggest motivation. They're the people that ultimately that I'm doing it for. But at the same time, all your kids want your time, isn't it? They're okay, they like getting their new toys or whatever as well, that's nice, but ultimately what they want is to spend time with you. So I just try and be quite strict about when I'm working and setting boundaries, I suppose, as well. I try not to be sitting glued to my phone. I kind of say to clients, you'll get a reply within 24 hours, and that's when the kids are in bed, so that I'm not just sitting constantly replying to messages all day, because it's very easy to fall into that habit.
Yeah, definitely. And then just like you say, just sitting looking at your phone when you should be spending time with them, and the next day you're at a wedding and you feel like it's
the mum guilt and mum and dad guilt it's hard. And obviously they're a bit older now, so they get it. It was harder when they were little. Obviously your boys are younger than mine, and it's probably a bit harder for them to understand, whereas my 2 are now like 7 and 9, so they kind of understand now. But they know that ultimately by doing this, it means then I've got other time there to do other things with them.
Definitely. And then I think maybe a lot of your growth is down to your personality as well as sort of your talent as a makeup artist. That you're really approachable, and when we're doing weddings together, all the bridal parties seem to be sort of, like I said earlier on, very relaxed and having a great time on the wedding mornings. Do you feel that side of you has helped grow your client base as well?
I mean, I hope so. It's always nice to hear that. I mean, it always feels a bit strange saying that about yourself. I'm a great person. I'm great to be around. But I think that's the feedback that I get from brides a lot. And I was quite shy before setting up my business. Like I didn't like public speaking. I wouldn't have done any of that, and I had to sort of push myself out of my comfort zone. So initially, I found that really hard, coming into like an environment where I didn't know people. And then again, I've just constantly had to kind of put myself out there a little bit just to grow, I suppose. And I mean, I always try, when I'm with a bridal party, I just try and keep everyone relaxed. And I would like to think that hopefully my brides do feel that way. it can be a very highly emotional day for a lot of people that are getting married.
Are quite, it's not stressed is maybe the wrong word to use,
Yeah,
but they're nervous
they're
and they're
overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And there's, obviously the majority of people that are getting married, it's a really happy day, but there also can be a lot of things that have maybe, made it quite a difficult day. If there's somebody, they've lost somebody that's not going to be there, or depending on the circumstances of the wedding. I've had some really difficult weddings where, there's maybe been like a terminally ill partner or parent. And so sometimes, yes, there's obviously people who say it must be really happy, and it is the majority of the time, but there can be a lot of other emotions. And I think, when you're getting married and you're looking at your suppliers, yes, of course, absolutely, you want to look at their style of whether it's their style of photography or hair or makeup or whatever it is they do, and you want to make sure that aligns with what you want. But also, you've got to kind of look and kind of find out a bit about that person. Are they a good fit for your morning? And you want somebody that is going to kind of get on with everyone, gel with everyone. And, not every makeup artist is the right makeup artist for that group. I won't be the right fit for every wedding. And, you'll be the same photography, but there'll be other couples that just, you don't align with them and they don't align with you. And that's absolutely fine. That's why it's great. There's so many out there, there's somebody for everyone. But I think it's really key to make sure that you do kind of have that rapport with people. What I kind of say to couples that are getting married, or it's only really the brides that I get to. I don't really get to meet a lot of the grooms. But, the wedding morning, depending on, how many there are of you, it can be 6 to 8 hours. You've got that hair and makeup team in a small hotel room quite often. That's quite intense. And that's a huge chunk of your wedding day. So you want it to be comfortable. You don't want to be stressed, and you want somebody that you just feel you can relax around and have a bit of chat with. So hopefully my brides do feel that way. I'd like to think so.
Definitely. And then, like I say, from weddings we've done together, so it sort of seems like you could become maybe friends with quite a few of them after being in with them, and
definitely.
It's just very sort of it's good for them to have that sort of rapport, like you say, with you during the morning, and makes it a lot easier for everyone during the day. I
mean, I've got a lot of my brides have actually become really some of my closest friends now, and it's lovely because I wouldn't, it's funny. It's like when people always say when you go to the hairdressers, you tell them everything. For some reason, people quite often when they sit in the makeup chair, they kind of feel like they can open up to you. It's almost like a form of therapy, I always think. And I don't know, people just, I think, sometimes in the wedding morning they can feel almost quite vulnerable if they're quite overwhelmed, and I think you can end up making really good friendships with people. So I've got a lot of my good friends have actually been from doing their weddings, so that's always really nice as well.
And then you said earlier on about you didn't really have, when you moved up here and you started doing makeup, there wasn't as much of a client base for yourself because you didn't know as many women.
No.
Do you feel now, because of the way you are and the way your work is, that you get more recommendations from people that'll be like brides and bridesmaids that then come back to you for makeup? So say there's a bridesmaid and they're friends at the wedding, they'll then come back to you for their own wedding.
Absolutely. I mean, because I didn't go to school or anything up here, I was kind of starting off in the back foot really. I didn't know anyone. I knew, as I say, mainly guys. I only knew a handful of females. So I was setting up, not only was I looking for a client base, I was looking for a network really when I started out. All mine were in Glasgow, and I could have set up a business there probably a lot quicker and easier because of the amount of people that I knew from school and previous jobs and things. But I feel like now, word of mouth has been crucial, and a lot of my bridesmaids have become brides, which is really nice. Or will recommend me to their friends that are getting married. I've had bridesmaids, that have been bridesmaids at 3-4 different weddings because when their other friends have been getting married, they've passed on my name as well. So that's really nice to see. And I think for a lot of people, especially if they've never had their makeup done before, they're maybe a bit apprehensive and maybe don't know what to expect. So I think, if people feel comfortable and they know that I'm going to listen to what they like, what they don't like, then, they will come back. And so it's really, really good. It's great when that happens.
And that's really good for you. Like that sort of speaks again to how good your work is and how you are as a person on the wedding morning, I guess. If the bridesmaids are seeing that you're really relaxing and that's obviously why they're recommending or coming back to you, isn't it? It's good.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I kind of see it as it is more than just putting makeup on someone,
Yeah.
and I like my brides to feel that they're kind of getting a bit more than that as well. You know, it's you'll see yourself like on a wedding morning, you know, quite often hair and makeup find themselves doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things. I was unstacking someone's dishwasher a couple of weeks ago for them because the place is obviously upside down as it is if you've got like 6 bridesmaids getting ready. And they were having people back the next day and they were kind of rushing about, and I ended up unstacking the bride's dishwasher while they were getting their clothes on. And then another bridesmaid from a couple of weeks ago, Achna Gern, she'd forgotten her earrings, so I gave her my earrings to borrow for the day. So I think, you know, it's little things like that people do kind of,
they appreciate it as well.
They appreciate it.
It takes a lot of pressure off their day as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I could be totally using the wrong terms here, but do you have your own sort of style of makeup? So like a woman will see your makeup compared to another makeup artist. Like, do you have a style, like you have a go-to sort of?
Yeah, I would say so. I think everyone's got their own unique style they do. In Inverness alone, you know, you can, obviously there's a lot of different makeup artists, but there is a huge variation in terms of what people kind of go for. You're probably going to write over your head, Ross, but I would say what's called soft glam. Have you heard of that expression before?
No.
Okay, so it's glam but soft, right?
Yeah.
So it's like so it's glam, but it's not overly dramatic. It's not overly done. It's enough to see that you've got it on, but it's not like really, really heavy, I suppose. But it's not too natural that you can't really see either. So that's kind of what we would call soft glam. So that's my kind of go-to, if you like. Obviously we do get, you know, from either end of that spectrum, you know, we will get the really, really natural looks as well, and we will get the really dramatic, which is great for my own sort of creativity, I suppose. It's nice to have a mixture, but my sort of preferred go-to, like signature style, if you like, would be soft glam. I just kind of want people to feel still like themselves, but just enhance their features rather than putting on so much makeup that they don't even look like themselves anymore.
Okay.
And that's where I feel that most people feel like they're most confident as well. So that's kind of my go-to.
Okay. And then say on a typical wedding morning, what is your sort of, if you could run us down from when you're sort of leaving the house to like what sort of kit? You obviously have a lot of kit and makeup and lighting and other stuff. So if you could talk us through sort of a wedding morning for yourself.
So yeah, I mean, obviously it'll vary depending on, you know, timings and things like that, but a typical wedding morning, if I have to, for example, be there for 7, I mean, I'm there at 6:45, I'm always early. I always like to overestimate how much time I'm going to need because things happen, you don't know what's going to happen, road closures, etc. So when I arrive, I'll arrive in my kit and it will look as if I'm moving in. I can always see people looking at me as if to say, are you seriously bringing all that in here? But you'd be amazed how much stuff we need. And I do try and keep my kit as condensed as I can. You know, that is the condensed version, but you don't know, you might have had a trial with a bride or the mum or one bridesmaid, but you know, you don't know what the next person's going to ask for and you have to be able to produce that. So we'll have all our kit. I have all my kit. I always have a tall chair as well because if you've got a chair like this, for example, I mean, you're going to like break your back.
For you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And lighting as well, which is so important. Especially depending on the venue, the lighting's not always great. Again, you'll know that from a photography standpoint. You know, some venues are quite tricky. Obviously, in here is amazing because it's so, you know, got so much daylight and. But some of the...
You could be in a bedroom somewhere and it's just, there's, like you say, there's 6 or 7 of you crammed into a room and it's...
And in the winter as well, like we're starting, as we touched on, we're starting so early. Like hair and makeup are starting really, really early. So it can be pitch black outside. So we always have to take like lighting and things with us. And yeah, I mean, setting up, when I arrive, it takes me about 10 to 15 minutes to set up. So you do need a lot of space. I mean, again, you'll have seen in a wedding morning, you do need a lot of space to set up because the more you can set up, the quicker it is to do it, and it just makes everything more accessible, and it keeps everything neater and whatever as well. So we do need quite a bit of room to set up as well. So yeah, that is kind of how I suppose a normal kind of morning starts, and then I always allocate roughly about an hour per person.
Okay.
Now makeup doesn't take an hour, but the reason I give myself an hour is because makeup takes about 45 minutes per person. I also want to give myself a good at least 5 minutes before I even start just chatting to the person to see what they like, what they don't like, because I want to make sure that everyone's getting that tailored service and that tailored look rather than just doing what I want to do on them. Again, making sure they're comfortable and confident and feeling their best. So I do spend quite a lot of time. Sometimes you feel like you're bombarding them with questions, actually. But I think that's really important just for both of us to help us get an idea. We always ask people to bring like an inspiration picture. Now, we're not going to replicate that, but it gives me an idea of what they kind of... Because what you're trying to do is see in their heads how they want to look, you know. And then obviously the remaining time is for all the cleaning and sanitising, which takes quite a bit of time, especially if you've got 6 or 7 people to do, like that's a lot. If I've got maybe 7 or more people, I do tend to take an assistant with me now as well, just for cleaning and sanitising. She's fab. She's only 16. She loves makeup, and it's been great because she's been learning a lot when we do it as well. And she's such a good help, even just keeping everything clean, sanitised, wiped down. And that saves me when I say a good 10 minutes per person, if you've got 8 people, that's a huge chunk of time. So that always helps. It's always good to have an extra set of hands there for all that kind of thing.
Definitely. And is there a particular order you would do someone, because by the time I'm there, you're sort of maybe through a couple of people and then there's touch-ups at the end. Is there an order that you would do it in the morning? So like, would it be who would be first, and then is there a particular order you would do it in? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I would usually say do the bride second last. And I always say that whoever is putting the bride or helping the bride into her dress, not to go last, just in case the bride wants to get ready. Then it means they're not waiting on anyone. Anyone that's a crier needs to go at the end. So if you're very emotional, you're going at the end.
In the morning, I'm the crier.
You can tell if you arrive at 7 a.m, there's someone crying in their coffee.
You're last.
You're last. But also in general, there's no real strict routine. I suppose as long as the bride's second last, and we would always do a retouch, like you said, anyway, at the end. So it's quite funny because I see it virtually every wedding. There'll always be, when I arrive, no one wants to go first. And everyone's like, no. And they're all kind of fighting, like, no, you go first. And then that's fine. A couple of bridesmaids will go. And then you guys will rock up at like 10, 11 o'clock. And you see the other bridesmaids' face like sink when they realise, I've got no makeup on, and he's taking all these pictures, and they're like, I should have gone first. So it doesn't really matter who the first 2 people are. It's more about the last couple. And again, that will vary slightly depending on the hairdresser, because hair tends to be quicker than makeup to do. So you're always just kind of keeping an eye to make sure that you don't end up needing the same person at the same time. So it's a bit of a kind of conveyor belt that we have kind of going on between hair and makeup.
And that's if you've got relationships with the the hair people as well, and that's hopefully that helps it flow in the morning as well. You're working with people regularly.
Definitely.
You know what's sort of going on with them.
And that's it, and they know how you kind of work. They know, and it's great to even have, like, I had somebody on Saturday, Suzanne and I were working together, and we started off her makeup, then she got her hair done, and then she came back and finished it off, because I can tell from looking at what stage she's at and vice versa. When the best time is to switch. So it might be a bit stop-start depending on who else is still to go, but you get to know how other people work, and that really helps the flow. And I think that actually helps put the bride's mind at rest as well, that they kind of know we've kind of got it all under control. It's
trusting the suppliers, isn't it? You know what you're doing. So
definitely.
So I put it on my Instagram that you were coming on the podcast today, and a couple of people got in touch with the same question actually to ask you in preparation for their own weddings. So you can definitely tell these next few questions aren't from myself, but what skin preparation would you suggest for a bride in the months and weeks and in the days before their wedding?
Okay, so there's a whole lot of factors to take into account. Obviously, it depends on that person's skin type, skin tone, skin concerns. So I'll give a very general answer. The first thing I would say is, if you are in a position to go for facials in the lead up to your wedding, brilliant. But for everyone, that's not an option. So if it's not an option, don't stress. There's so many good, really affordable products out there that you don't have to go. Obviously, it's a nice to have, but it's not essential. I would say the two main things that make it more difficult for makeup artists is if someone's skin is dry and if it needs exfoliated.
Okay.
There's only so much we can do on the day, and we need to be really careful what products we use in the day because we don't know what they're allergic to. We don't know what can irritate their skin. We can't use anything too harsh or abrasive. So the work kind of has to be done before the wedding. So in the lead up to the wedding, the weeks running up to it, weeks and months, I would, be saying to people, we'll do what's called a double cleanse. You know what that is?
Nope.
No, okay. This is going to go right over the top of your head, okay?
Yeah.
So a double cleanse is where when you're washing your face, you actually are doing like a 2-step cleanse. So the first step is normally, I would use like what's called like a cleansing balm, which is almost like the consistency of like coconut oil. So it's like in a jar, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of massage it into your face, use like a warm face cloth, and that takes off your makeup and everything like that. And then you use like a regular cleanser to actually wash your face.
Okay.
So that's the first thing I would say to do because that will really help make your skin nice and clear.
Yeah.
And I would recommend using things like, obviously depending on your skin type, but things called AHAs, BHAs, which are like liquid exfoliants basically. Okay. So what they basically do is they dissolve any dead skin cells. So rather than using an exfoliator that's got like the little grainy, sandy particles, using a liquid one will just dissolve those. They can be quite harsh, so you do need to kind of build up a tolerance, which is why I can't use them on a client on the wedding day.
Yeah.
So that kind of has to be done at home because you might need to start off using it once a week or once every other day or whatever and build up a tolerance to it. And then obviously moisturising. So that's the main things. If people ask me, it's like exfoliate and hydrate are the two main things, and cleanse obviously. In the lead up to the wedding, I would always say to people to sort of stop for maybe about the week before, stop using what's called retinol. So retinol is like an anti-aging product that, again, it's very, very strong. You have to build up your tolerance to it. A lot of people use it. It's a great thing to incorporate into your skincare regime, but it can be really drying on your skin, which again will create problems for the makeup as well. The other thing I would say is just looking after your skin. SPF. One major thing not to do is not to get burnt. If you get your face not even fully burnt, but if you just get a little bit too much sun, like makeup will not stick to it.
I was about to say, does that just make it near impossible to put?
It won't adhere to it.
Okay.
If the skin, even if it's not fully burnt, but it's just got a little bit too much sun, no matter how much makeup you put on it, you will not be able to cover it. It just won't adhere to it at all. I actually had that with a bridesmaid just a couple of weeks ago, and again, found her full nose, and she wasn't even that burnt, but she just caught a lot of the sun. She lives abroad, and nothing we could do would get that to adhere. So that is especially coming into the summer months. Hopefully, we're going to get some good weather soon. I mean, I know it feels a bit of a cheat talking about it just now, but wearing like a high SPF every single day. Especially if you're using things like AHAs, BHAs, which are, you need to be using SPF 50 every single day. And no tan lines. Don't get burnt and have tan lines because we can't cover them. Sometimes you'll hear people saying, "Oh, I've got this cross on the back of my tan lines on the back of my on my back, but you can cover that, can't you?" And you're like, "Absolutely not, because if that rubs onto the dress, then that's on me." So so that's a major no-no, is do not get burnt in the lead up to the wedding. But on the day, we need to use things that are quite gentle. So the prep really needs to be done before you come to the wedding that morning. Okay.
That's interesting because you could have people that have booked out a place for the weekend and they could just be out in the sun on the Friday, not thinking about it. And then the Saturday they turn up and you're like, oh, you're burnt. So
you literally can't do anything about it. And the other thing that people don't always realise is even if you're just a little bit red and you're not fully burnt, if you're like, say it's your chest, no foundation colour is matching that. It don't come in shade red, So trying to match their makeup, and of course it just sticks out in photos, and there's nothing you can do to cover that. You will never be able to match it. So I do always try and really drill that home that you can't turn up like that, but we do get it. So just being really, really careful and just drinking loads of water. The usual things we all know we're supposed to do, I know in amongst all the wedding prep, it's very easy to kind of lose sight of that, but it really will pay dividends for your makeup. It'll last so much longer and it'll look so much better when it's applied as well.
Okay. And do you recommend, that people get trials with, you obviously touched on it a little bit earlier on, that you do trials during the week maybe is that something that you'd recommend to people to do? Or?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not 100% essential, but honestly, I would recommend it every single time. It makes everything so much more, smooth sailing on the day. It makes everything a lot easier, because sometimes what people think they want and what they actually want are very, very different.
It might be, yeah.
And you don't know until you get it done. If especially if you've never had your makeup done before, you might look at a picture and think, oh, that looks really nice, I'd like that, but you've never seen yourself with that on. So getting a trial, it definitely makes things easier. And sometimes it's a case of they get a trial and it's like, okay, well, that's what I definitely don't want, or, I want more than I thought I did. Everyone's perception of what's natural is very different. So one person will come and what they think is natural is actually a lot of makeup to someone else. So a trial just gives us that leeway for me to kind of see what they mean by natural. What we see a lot at trials is people bring a photo. It's always a Kardashian. It's always a picture of Kardashian. It doesn't matter which one it is. Always one of them. And people will bring a picture of a Kardashian, and they'll say, "Okay, I want that makeup." But actually, when you break the makeup down, and I'm like, "Okay, so, they've got this," and they're like, "Oh no, but I don't like that," and they've got this, "Oh no, I don't like that." But actually, it's not that they want that makeup. It's just that they look really nice in that picture. But actually, when they actually look at the tones used in the makeup, they're like, oh, I don't actually like that.
They need to realise that the Kardashians are getting photos taken with proper photographers and
lighting
on.
Filters. Like they don't even look like that. Like Kim Kardashian doesn't even look like that. It's trying to kind of, I suppose, get an idea of how they're imagining to look in their head. And sometimes that's hard because they don't know either. So having a trial run really does help. And also just, there's maybe things that they haven't thought of. If they've never had their makeup done before, or maybe they've worn it the same way all the time, they've never thought of other options. So having a trial really does give them a chance to try something that they maybe aren't brave enough to try on the wedding day. And it also means as well that we would always recommend having a couple of makeup, like lipstick and any lip products we use, for example. I would always say, have that with you on the day so you can touch it up throughout the day, because obviously it'll wear off with eating, drinking, kissing, everything else you're doing on your wedding day. And if you've not had a trial, then you've not been matched up for one that's really that suits your whole look. So there's a lot of pros, and it saves a lot of time on the day as well.
That's
if you know
what
we're doing.
So definitely. You know what you're doing, they know what they're getting. There's no, as such, they don't have to come in blind as to what they're,
definitely.
That's a good idea. And is there any particular brands or definite go-tos for makeup and skincare for a wedding or in general?
Again, it varies. There's a lot of brands that are good for some things, not so good for others. So some brands I love their foundations, but I don't like their lip products, or vice versa. So mine is very varied. I have a lot of different brands. I use a lot of Hourglass products. Again, this is all going over your head, Ross, but a lot of Hourglass products are really lovely. NARS, love them. Their foundations are phenomenal. Tom Ford, again, gorgeous eye palettes. Use a lot of makeup by Mario, a whole lot of different brands.
You're hoping for a wee paid partnership here, aren't you? Get a wee.
Hashtag ad. I do use a lot of different brands, and I like trying new things. But I'm always a big believer in not so much about being the brand, about being the best product, because I love Charlotte Tilbury, for example, but there are some products that I'm not so keen on. And you'll find that with anything. I am also a huge believer in supporting smaller local brands as well, and that's something that I really do try to incorporate into my kit. Especially since COVID, we've really put an emphasis on supporting local and all that kind of thing. And I so there's a makeup artist who's from the same sort of area as me back in Lanarkshire. And she set up her own lipstick brand, and it's the only Scottish handmade, hand-poured, lipstick in Scotland. She's actually now in Harris Beauty in Edinburgh. She's done really well for herself. Natalie Grace Cosmetics. She's done, and So again, I am a huge advocate in supporting her. So hers are always stocked in my kit.
Good.
And then we see a lot of like makeup artists like bringing out their own lash brands. Jewel Cosmetics in Aberdeen. Again, brilliant products. So I'm a huge believer in incorporating them into my kit as well. Okay. And for skincare, again, really varied. I try to keep it simple so that, it's something I know people aren't going to react to. So I use, a whole host of different brands, but overall, I just try and keep it quite simple and go for things that are unfragranced. Like Release is really good. Bobbi Brown face base, really, really good. And again, things that I know generally don't tend to cause a lot of reactions in people.
Yeah. I took a lot of that in there. Just it's great for people. I know. It's great for people that are watching, brides and bridesmaids or future ones. But
you're going to Kimberly. Have you tried that Hourglass, Kimberly? It's really good.
Yeah,
a really good range of products.
So, if a bride is getting in touch with you to book their wedding or book a trial, and what do you offer? And kind of, can you give us a rundown of what they would expect to get from you if they're booking a wedding, and then they're obviously booking for themselves, and I'm assuming a bridal party at the same time. So
yeah,
what do they get from you from sort of inquiry stage to the wedding?
Right through. So first of all, whenever they make their booking, everything, I always like to make sure that we've got everything set in stone and covered, so that there's everyone, if in case of any emergencies, everyone's covered. So I make sure that we've got wedding contracts in place, and it just gives people peace of mind that they know that, I'm coming, I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
I think that really does help reassure them that they're kind of, being looked after in that sense. I do offer a free consultation for anyone that wants one.
Okay.
It's not something that I get a huge amount of, to be honest. Probably the majority of people that have a free consultation are either people who live abroad and are maybe not going to be able to have a child. So we get a lot of brides from America and various places.
And is that just something over like the phone or like Zoom
or something usually. And I would really just do that if there's no time for a child.
Yeah.
Or if someone might come for a consultation if they're maybe not sure if they're going to have their makeup done, if they're not a big makeup wearer, or if they quite like doing their own. There's a lot of people that like doing their own.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll do a free consultation, and all we really do at that point is it's not so much a trial, it's just a chat. A chat about what they like. And again, I think that's quite a good thing if you are looking at suppliers in general and to see whether that person's a fit for you. If they do offer a free consultation, you can always have a wee half-hour chat with them and get an idea as to whether or not that works. So that's something I always offer. I do always, whenever brides book as well, I'll always ask, do they need any other supplier recommendations? Again, that's something that the feedback I get from brides a lot is like how much of a help that was, because, and again, I know we spoke about this earlier today, but if you've never been married before or you've never been a bridesmaid before, like we sometimes forget that other people don't know all the florists and all the, hairdressers or whatever. But these can really help getting recommendations of people they know are good and reputable. So that's something that I always do. And, obviously, as a photographer, I would always recommend Ross highly. So that's something I always kind of help brides out with. And I just keep in touch throughout the whole process. I always check in just to see how they're getting on in the lead up to their wedding. And I think that just it gives them peace of mind again that, I'm still coming, I'm still booked in the diary. I do recommend brides have their trials roughly 2 to 3 months before their wedding.
Okay.
So again, I'll be keeping in touch with them. My diary opens 3 months in advance for trials. So I'll be getting in touch with them all the time before just to make them aware of that. And that is, obviously when we arrive on the day, I think it just gives people peace of mind that we kind of, we've got a bit of a rapport and a bit of a relationship already there,
and what's
which
happening,
helps.
And then you touched on your diary there for trials, but how far in advance are you taking bookings for weddings at the moment? I think, did I see you're opening your diary for 2024?
So 2025,
soon?
So that opens on Monday morning.
Okay.
So normally, I would normally have like my 2025 diary would normally be already open, but just everything's so up in the air just now, and I was just kind of holding off a little bit. So I've got my diaries open on Monday, and with the cost of living and everything going up, I think a lot of suppliers are holding off because they're like not sure whether to make any price adjustments and everything like that. So I'm going to open it on Monday. 2024 is looking really, really full already.
Good.
But lots of weekday weddings, which is really nice. You know, if you get one on a Monday or a Tuesday, like what a great way to start the week.
Definitely,
you know? So I try and kind of book out my holidays and, you know, other various dates very far in advance, and then that means I can open my diary nice and early.
Yeah.
And then as they fit the trials in closer to the time.
Yeah. Okay. And then how does that work with your sort of longer term plans if you're opening your diary sort of 2 years in advance? I don't know if you've got any longer term plans, but it's just like you say, you're planning holidays and that. I suppose then you'd have to book out your holidays for 2025 and
that's pretty much how it goes, especially when you've got kids that are in school and you're very much tied to school holidays. I tend to kind of take the same set holidays a year. You know, I always make sure that I give myself like the same fortnight in July, which is really nice actually, because a lot of my clients that are getting married, they know that I take those, so they work their wedding around it, which is really nice.
Yeah, that's good for you.
It's lovely. You know, it's really, really nice when you hear people have done that.
Definitely,
And again, with the school holidays in October, December, April, I take the same week off every time. You know, obviously to go home, go back to Glasgow, see family, and obviously spend time with the kids as well. So you do have to be organised. Obviously now and again, like a little, you know, bank holiday creep. We've had a fair few in the last the last 6 months or so, and obviously just, you know, that's just what happens. But as you know, as far in advance as I can, I try and book things out. Longer term plans, you know, I have got a few things that I'm kind of working on in the background that I can't say too much about just now. But you know, wedding makeup is still very much my, you know, forefront, and is still very much my number one priority. Like I still fully expect to rock up to a wedding when I'm like a pensioner. I might need to hand my bags, but
you'll have your assistant.
I'll need somebody to carry my bags and put my Zimmer. But I can't. It's because that's what I love doing. That's when I'm happiest. So I can't imagine ever not doing that. So even though there's another few wee things that I'm kind of looking at just to branch out a little bit, I think you always want to keep growing and diversifying and bringing new things in. But that is still my number one, regardless.
And if you're doing that, that'll keep your passion. If you're like looking at other things, that'll keep your passion for doing the makeup and weddings even stronger. I would say if there's other things that are coming in and makes you sort of realise you still want to keep doing the weddings and the makeup and that as well. Yeah,
that's it. You want to grow, and it kind of opens your horizons. And I think when you kind of open that kind of part of your brain, where you kind of start looking at other things, naturally other things will come into your brain as well, which kind of helps the overall experience and service that your clients are getting. I do, you know, obviously I always want to kind of grow and develop more. But yeah, it's great that I'm still able to do what I love doing while doing other things as well. It's just, having that diary organised and trying to cram it all in and amongst everything else that the kids have got going on.
So you'll have worked hundreds of weddings. Do you have any special memories in particular from?
I mean, that's a hard one because obviously there's so many. I would say definitely doing some of my best friends' weddings has been lovely. That's been really, really nice. They like certainly make you like earn your wedding meal that day by putting some graft in that morning first. But that's always really nice, you know, and that's a hugely special moment. Especially like some of them, you know, you've been bridesmaids for, but some of them you're not. You're a guest, and you know, being able to spend that wedding morning with them is pretty amazing. One of my friends in particular, she got married like very much in the height of all the kind of COVID restrictions, and things were still very strict, you know, with numbers, no dancing, all this kind of stuff. But I was allowed to do her makeup, which was great. And you know, we've been best friends for years and years and years. We had such the loveliest morning, and that definitely is up there with one of them. Her husband gave her the most sentimental gift, like out of every wedding I've ever done, that was by far, like, he really nailed it.
Right.
And just seeing her face when she opened that. I mean, you know, you see weddings where it's like really lavish gifts. This was something like really sentimental that he'd done, and it was like her face. And I think, you know, like, it's a bit of an honour, isn't it, to see those moments, because you know, you'll be the same as a photographer. Like if you go as a guest, you miss all that. You miss that whole part of the day. You don't see that firsthand. But we see so many things that like other closest friends and families don't get to see. So that wee moment was really nice. Steph will be delighted that she's got a mention on this actually. So that was definitely one of them.
You take it for granted being, like you say, in those moments, like if we're photographing a year and about sort of maybe the time a father of the bride sees the bride for the first time and sort of has a wee, or maybe a cry or something and a special moment with the bride, like you say, that's a moment that no one else really sees. So it sounds bad saying you take it for granted because we're there doing our jobs, but it's nice to be part of those moments, isn't it? And
definitely
special moments during the morning.
Well, that's it. Like, so many people don't see that, and I think those are the things that you kind of really do appreciate what you do. Obviously, there's loads of nice ones. Loads of my friends have got married, and they've all been amazing. They've all been lovely. Seeing them happy is brilliant. But it's those little sentimental things that I think really trump it for me. I think even just I've had a few weddings where, as I say, I touched on earlier, that you've maybe had someone's been terminally ill, or there's a lot of it's a difficult wedding in a lot of ways, and actually just knowing that for that morning, they felt amazing, they felt comfortable, they felt confident, they felt happy, and that you've played a small part in that is really nice. I had a bride actually recently whose mum passed away unexpectedly just not long after her wedding. And I got a really, really lovely message just thanking her, saying like she felt amazing that day, and thanking me and for the photos they've now got. Obviously, I never took the photos, but you were part of what made her feel like that. So there's a lot of that that's definitely,
that makes a difference. I got one of them recently for a bride's granddad had died, and she was like, it's just so amazing to have had photos of them, and they were looking back on them obviously when they sadly passed away. But like you say, it's you don't.
That's a memory for them now, isn't it? That you've gave them.
Yeah. And it gives you that sort of feeling, we're doing something like, it's obviously really great doing weddings, but that you realise how important they are when you get messages like that. And,
you get a lot of weddings that stand out for so many reasons. Sometimes we have some that stand out for other reasons, I've had probably the most difficult wedding that I've ever had was I had a wedding, would that be a few years ago now anyway, 2018, 2019. And the mother of the bride actually had a stroke and a seizure on the wedding morning.
Right, okay.
Which was incredibly difficult. And I had another makeup artist who was working alongside me, and that's when you realise that you're there, you're helping in a lot of other ways, you're offering support in lots of other ways, and it's moments like that again, you're all rallying around, you're trying to all really help with whatever's happening. And again, it's moments like that you kind of look back on, and they'll stand out forever. You'll always think on them and always think of them. But I think you've just got to, I think again, that boils down to having the right suppliers there for you, because, for whatever reason, you've got to know that you've got that right team of people there to help you with whatever emotions, whatever happens that day.
Yeah, definitely. So we did this on the last podcast. I'm going to try and keep this going for every guest that comes on with the same closing question. So what advice would you give to couples, or mainly brides, that are planning their wedding, and then for on the wedding day itself? Just sort of general advice that you would...
I would say the main thing is really just try to be true to what you really want and not try to please others. We see that all the time, couples who end up with a wedding that's very difficult to how they wanted it, because they're trying to keep their mum happy, their granny happy, or their auntie, whoever happy. And I always kind of say to couples, obviously it's your day, but no matter how you do it, somebody's always going to disagree and think you should have done it differently. And someone's always going to have a different input into it. And I think, so the main thing I would say is just have what you want. I think we see it a lot as well, where couples feel under a lot of pressure, because it can be quite competitive, weddings, especially if it's at a venue that you've been to a wedding before, like as a guest. You're like, oh, but they had this, and they had like magicians, and they had like fire eaters, and they had whatever. And that's all lovely to have if that's what you want. But I think sometimes people feel like they're under a lot of pressure to have a lot of extra stuff. And actually, some of the loveliest weddings I've had have been the really stripped back, like ones with like 10 people, So I think just having what you really want, and just, kind of trying to just enjoy it. You know, there's a lot of people get so stressed and overwhelmed in the lead up to the wedding that actually it's not enjoyable. And even on the day, a lot of people stress so much about the wedding and everything. You know, is this happening? Is that happening? That they're actually not taking it in. And do you know what? Things might go wrong, but I mean, we had so many wee hiccups at our wedding, and it didn't ruin the day at all. And actually now, if I mention them to my friends, they're like, I don't remember that happening. They don't remember it happening. And it was just, you know, I remember when we were getting married, one of my friends' mum saying to me, you know, at the end of the day, it's a wedding, it's not a show. As long as you're both married to each other, everything went perfectly. And I remember thinking, that's so true. I think sometimes people get caught up and they forget that the people that are there are people that are like, that love them, care for them, are rooting for them. They're not there to be impressed. Do you know what I mean? So just enjoy it. Just take it all in and just, just have it your way and how you want it. And there's no rules now. You get married where you want, when you want. And that's what I really love. I feel like weddings are quite different in the last few years. They're kind of, people are diversifying and they're doing it the way they want to do it, which is really cool.
Which is good,
Definitely.
So that's all been amazing, and thank you for coming on. I'm sure there'll be a lot of future brides and bridesmaids that have learned a lot today from your makeup and everything you've been saying. So if people don't follow you on social media already, where can they find you?
So Instagram's probably my most used, so I'm at Lisa Hart Makeup.
You're quite active on that, aren't you?
That's the one I kind of use most of the time. I'm not quite in with the TikTok trend yet, trying.
No.
But yeah, Instagram is pretty much where most of my inquiries come through. So yeah, it'd be lovely to hear from anyone that has any wedding related questions as well. I'm always free to.
So what is your sort of Facebook and Instagram handle like as such? What is
It's Lisa Hart, Inverness Makeup Artist.
Inverness Makeup Artist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do find me on there.
Okay, great. Thank you again for coming on, and thank you to everyone for watching and listening. You can find me on social media at Ross Cooper Photos on Facebook and the Ross Cooper Wedding Photographer on Instagram and also on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. So thank you again.
So much. Thanks for having me.